Today we're making these superhero comic book style shockwave effects inside of Resolve, and it's going to be a blast. You can even follow along. All you have to do is download the footage in the link in the description or right there. Let's get into it. There are a couple of shots in the downloadable work files from our movie Breakfast Brawl. One is this kick to the head, and the other one is called slam. Boom, like that. Drop these into a new Resolve project. Go to the project settings and set your color management settings like this. Select both of these, right click on them and go down to Input Color Space, Blackmagic Design Film Gen 5. This is going to set your color management settings to be beautiful and look like this instead of log, okay? Add each of these shots to a new timeline and let's click into Fusion. We'll start with this shot, the slam shot. And what we're going to want to do here is when she slams him down on the mat, we want there to be kind of this little shockwave circle that kind of grows out like that. And so there are a couple of challenges that we need to think about here. One is how do we actually make the graphic of the circle? And then the other one is how do we make it feel like it's in the environment and move along with the environment like it's actually there. So let's start out first with actually making the graphic. Now we're going to do this in a pretty fun way, I think. We're going to start with a background node. Just take a background node like this, and I'm going to select it and go up to image, and let's make this image 1920 by 1920, like that, something square, like that. So now when we bring this into a viewer, it's a square, and let's make it a certain color. Let's make it bright green. And we're going to take a mask, that's this little icon here, and drag this onto the background like that. Uncheck solid and push up the border width. So that's going to make just a circle. And what we're going to do is have this circle just expand and fade out. Let's figure out the timing for that. I'm just going to look at our media in again. Right when she slams him down, that's where it's going to start. So right about there, maybe frame 8, frame 9, let's say frame 8. Say frame 8, that's where it's going to start. So let's go up to this ellipse and we're going to make the width and height 0 at frame 8. So we'll just hit keyframes on both of those. And then by frame 32, we're going to have the width be, let's say like 0.9, 0.9, something like that. So it's grown almost to the size of our background here. So from frame 8 to frame 32, it just grows like this. We're also going to have this fade out, which we can do a bunch of different ways, but we could just animate this level control here. And so we'll start with the level at 1, and then as it comes out, we're going to fade it out to 0. So we have this kind of ripple effect. And then we're just going to kind of take this ripple effect and just put it on the floor. There are a lot of ways that you could do that, but we're going to take the easiest route. I'm just going to look at this sort of in the middle, frame 21 or so. And let's take this ripply background, take the output and just merge it over this media in like this, and then look at our media out. And now we have this kind of over it like this, but here at frame 21 or so, we're going to use an effect called DVE. This is short for digital video effect. It's basically a bunch of kind of fancy transforms that you can do to an image without having to do a bunch of 3D stuff. So let's select our background 1 and hit Shift spacebar and type DVE. Bring up this DVE effect. And the thing that I like about this DVE effect is I can rotate this on the x-axis and look what happens. Oh, it looks like it's on the ground. It just moves it in perspective and you don't have to deal with anything crazy. You don't actually have to make this in a 3D space or do a corner pin or anything like that. It's just a really simple way to make a kind of a 3D looking effect, which is going to work just fine for what we're doing. So there's our rotation, just rotating this on the x-axis, and I'm going to move this down to be right about where his back is, something like that. And now we could see kind of where we're getting at here, right? Kind of expands like this. That works really well. I love that. Let's make this maybe just a little bigger. Let's just run this through a transform like this. Just size this up a touch and just move this kind of where it's supposed to be. So we have this roughly where we want. Now, it's not going to match up perfectly because we don't have this tracked, but the idea is there. You get it, right? So let's make this actually work. And we're going to do this with a planar tracker. So let's hit Shift spacebar and type planar. There we go. And what I want to do is capture the movement of this shot so that I can apply it to that 3D-ish looking ripple. So let's take this planar transform, put this here in the viewer. And let's look at this. I want to track the motion here, but I don't want to track this part right here because these guys are moving, not really with the camera. Everything else is kind of moving with the camera. So we're going to kind of ignore this part. All right. There's ways you can do that with masking and all kinds of stuff, but really the easiest way is just to select the parts that aren't the people. So I'm just going to kind of do one of these things. I'll go to reference time and hit set like this, and then track this forward. Go, track it backward. That's not going to work very well. It's kind of tweaking out, so I'm going to reset this again. Sometimes you have to try this a couple times. Let's just start at the beginning here. Let's just try this one more time. Sometimes you just got to try it a couple times. Set. I don't want this in perspective. That's one thing. I just want translation and rotation here for motion type. Let's track that forward. Ooh, yeah. There we go. I think that's going to work. So that captures the motion of pretty much everything except for the people, which is what we want. And then we can hit Create Planar Transform. What that's going to do is make a transform node that we can run this through. And that's going to apply the motion from the shot to what we have here. And now let's look. Oh, baby, it's moving along with the shot. Awesome. Now it's moved things around a little bit, so we can adjust that. Probably just take this DVE. We can actually move this around. We probably don't even need that second transform. Let's just move this around here like this. Make sure that we have our X rotation looking good. And we can kind of skim through this a little bit. And that should work pretty well in perspective. It honestly, this looks like something that you would have to 3D track. But a lot of the time, you can get away with not doing a 3D track, especially if it's something like what we're making here, which doesn't have to be totally exact because it's kind of like this energy effect. If it doesn't quite match perfectly, it's going to be fine still. There we go. The only thing I want to do is maybe make this ripple a little bit faster. So I can go to the keyframes panel and let's select this ellipse and go to these three dots and say show only selected tools. It's going to make things a little bit easier on us. I can twirl this down and then let's take this end keyframe and just push this up a little bit like that. I'm also going to select this end one and hit F on the keyboard. That's going to flatten out those keyframes. We can see that a little bit easier in the spline panel where we're flattening out these handles for those keyframes. That's going to have this slow down before it stops, which is going to be really nice for our animation here. So now it just goes, yeah. Now it really looks like that's actually animating here from his back. It should pretty much stay on the ring. That looks pretty good. Now let's do a couple things to make this a little bit cooler looking. Before this ring hits the DVE, let's go and do some displacement to it. Displacement is a way to kind of add ripples to things. So if we select this and hit Shift Spacebar and type DISP, right here, this displace node, that's what we're looking for. I'll hit add, and by default, this will do nothing. But what we want is to drive this displace with a fast noise. We can take the output of this fast noise and put that into the green input, and now see it's kind of moving a little bit. Bring the fast noise up over here. Let's make the fast noise the same size. Let's go to image in our fast noise and uncheck auto resolution, type 1920 by 1920. So now we have these clouds. And what this fast noise is doing is creating these clouds, and then we're plugging this into the displace, and the displace is going to ripple things more where this is white and less where it's black. So let's take this fast noise and maybe change this scale a little bit. And now as we change the scale, we can see there's these ripples around here. I'll make this a little bit more strong so we can really see it. Now we have all these ripples like this, and that's being driven by the fast noise. So as I take the detail down, it gets smoother. As I take it up, it gets rougher. Isn't that cool? This fast noise and displace is the coolest. I'm going to take this offset all the way down. That makes sure that no matter how much it's displaced, it doesn't move around too much. It just kind of wiggles. So we're going to take this refraction strength down a little bit and maybe take this fast noise detail up a little bit, something like that. We just don't want this to look like a perfect ring. We want it to look more organic. Yes, that looks cool. All right. We also might take this ellipse and push the soft edge up just a touch, just because we don't want that to be super sharp. And now we have this kind of organic looking energy ring. Let's see what this looks like in the comp. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. See, that looks really cool. Still looks kind of cartoony, but it has a little bit of a more realistic feeling because of those edges. Now, depending on how we want this to look, we can adjust kind of the style of it. If we want this to be kind of glowing a little bit more and make it look like it's light instead of just kind of like a graphic, we could do a couple things to this. One thing we could do would just be to kind of add a glow, maybe after the displace. Add a little glow like that. That might be cool. You could also do something like add a white background. I'll just copy and paste this background because it's already sized like this. And then merge that over. And let's just copy and paste this ellipse. But we're going to take the soft edge down a little bit and the border width down a little bit. And now that's going to have kind of this white ring inside of the green ring. We can set this alpha gain down to 0. And now it looks a little bit more like it's glowing, right? It has that kind of bright white glow. We could also take this merge and take the alpha gain down on the merge, and that's going to blend this slightly better with everything. Yeah, I like that a lot. That looks cool. Okay, so there's kind of the main effect that looks really neat. But now we have to put it behind our wrestlers because it's obviously added after the fact, right? What we really want is this to be kind of on the floor. So we can use our wonderful magic mask to make this happen. This is an effect that is only available in the paid version of Resolve. So kind of a bummer if you have the free version, but even just the magic mask is plenty reason to get the paid version of Resolve, the Resolve Studio. Trust me, there's a lot of other reasons, but this is a great one. And so what I'm going to do is find a frame that's relatively clear, and then we're just going to draw over everything that we want to put this energy thing behind. All right, something like that. That's going to automatically kind of cut this out. I'm going to also hold Alt and cut out the floor part here. Yeah, something like that. Doesn't have to be exact, something like that. And then let's track this back and forth. And it's going to do a pretty good job of sticking to the people. Like, pretty amazing job, honestly. I'm going to go to matte and push up the blur a little bit because it's really okay if we cut into this matte a little bit because we want this to feel like it's glowing a little bit. And let's take this magic mask like this over to the right and just merge this over the energy. So we have 3 layers here. We have our background, we have the energy ring, and then we have the foreground, which is just exactly the same as the background, but kind of cut out. So we're kind of just putting a patch over this energy ring. And now, when we put these all together, it looks like the energy is behind the wrestlers. Especially since it's moving fast, nobody's going to notice the little imperfections there. Isn't that awesome? What a cool effect. So you can add this to any kind of shot where you want to have some kind of impact. Pretty much the same idea as you just animate some kind of ripple like this, have it fade out, add some displacement, use a DVE to put it in perspective or rotate it however you need. Use a planar tracker to track the movement of the shot, run this through the planar transform that makes, and that's put right over the shot. And then whatever it's supposed to be behind, we just magic mask and put in front of it. That's pretty much the idea. Let's take a look at another effect. I'm going to switch over to our kick shot. And this is a timeline that I've already worked on. And a lot of this is kind of a similar idea. And this shot is really cool. There's kind of this light trail that happens when he kicks her like that. We have these little shock waves and this text. So how do we do this? Oh no, we have a whole bunch of nodes here. Let me walk you through it. So we're going to start out with our media in. So this is just our original footage. I'll kind of move this around so we can see it. And we have our planar tracker, which I can get rid of. This is the same thing. I just tracked this kind of shape so that I could track the movement of the shot without it messing up by tracking the performers. I can actually get rid of that. For the actual light trail here, we're going to make this in a very similar way to the ripple, where we have a background and we have a mask on that background. And this is just more of kind of an arc shape here. And I'm also masking a white background and making it a little less soft and squishing it in a little bit. This time I used a polygon mask. And for the white mask, I just took the soft edge down a little bit and pushed down the border width, which kind of eats away at it. And you put these together and it's just a white mask over a softer red mask, which is kind of the same way you make lasers and lightsabers and that kind of thing. It's just like a white core with a red glow. That goes through a displace, just like we did before. So there's kind of a displace. The only difference is that we have our fast noise, which I pushed up the seethe rate. The seethe rate animates the clouds like this. And that's being pushed through this displace, which kind of makes it go like that. All of that goes through the planar transform, which moves this along with the shot from that tracking that we did. And we put this over the shot. And again, very similar to what we were doing, right? The only difference here is that we're wiping this effect kind of where his foot is. The way that I'm doing that is just in the merge. I have an ellipse mask that I've just keyframed to have the edge right on his foot right there. So it just kind of follows his foot like that and reveals where his foot is. I also kind of drew this shape to kind of follow the arc of his foot, just like that. You could do the same with a punch or a hit or whatever. So I have that animate on just by being revealed by this circle mask. And then that runs through a rectangle mask, which just later kind of wipes that off like this. So this is the mask that's affecting that red light streak. There we go. And so we have that being revealed and then it kind of wipes off like that. Then we're doing the same thing. We're magic masking the performers and we're just doing a really basic soft mask on that. And then we're putting it back over the light streak like that. Just putting it over, and that kind of hides that mask behind his foot. Just like that. Looks so cool. It's so easy. Then what I did was add a lens flare. Now, if you want something to look like it's emanating light, a great way to do it is just to put a lens flare on it. So I took the lens flare and animated it to just kind of travel along this path. And the one tricky thing that I did is I checked light source masking. What that does is it kind of limits where the flare can be based on the brightness of the image going into it, right? So if I were to go to select output and say source mask, you can adjust this mask threshold to only select the brightest parts of the image like this. So I just have it kind of selecting that light path, switch this output back to final image. And then when it goes behind his leg, it kind of turns off that flare. So I don't have to animate that myself. So that's a really great way to do that. And it really sells that effect to add that lens flare. Really adds a lot to it. We have a little bit of a light wrap in front of our performers here. So that makes it feel like it's really there. All right. The next thing I did was I added these kind of shockwave things. This right here. And this isn't too different than what we were doing before. Really, we're just creating this shape using the same kind of techniques, except for instead of masking a background node, we're masking fast noise. And so I have this fast noise, which is just red clouds. So I just made a fast noise, changed some settings around, changed the color to red. And then I have a couple of masks. One is just a circle mask, which is the same thing. It's just a animated circle like that. And then I masked that circle with a little kind of triangle shape here so that we're really only looking at a slice of that circle, like a pie slice. Then we apply that to the fast noise. That makes this kind of shape. And it's just masking those clouds. But then we put that through a displace. So this is just fast noise into a displace that's pretty strong. And it just kind of makes it ripple a little bit. The displace is just next level, man. That's what makes these kind of energy things look really cool. And then we put that through a radial blur. So this is the kind of blur that it's like a spin blur. It takes that displaced cloud and kind of adds some whooshy things to it. So when those all go together, it looks like it's kind of emanating energy, especially right here. We can see that kind of radial blur happening. Here's without it. It would look like a cloud, but with that radial blur, it looks like it's emanating energy, which is so cool. So all that goes together, and I just literally just put that on top of her head and had that kind of come out like that. So now there's that impact, kind of cartoony impact. Oh, I love that. Next, we added some text. So this is text that just says ear, like she got kicked in the ear. Putting that through a displace, just kind of making that wiggle, same way. And a transform, running that through the planar transform, which is our track, so that it kind of sticks to the shot. And then I'm just animating that to grow right there and just say ear and then fade out like that. And that's the whole shot. It's really only a couple of elements, and it's all made within Fusion. We aren't even using anything crazy. It's mostly just masked backgrounds, ran through a displace node, masked fast noise, ran through a displace node with that radial blur, text with a displace node, animated to just kind of scale up and fade in and fade out. And there we go. Bam. So cool. So cool. Download this footage and try it yourself, okay? There's a link in the description. I'll also put one right here. This is really fun visual effects stuff. I love this stuff. And by the way, if you want to dive really deep making some visual effects, we have a course for that. It's right there. It's called Pro VFX. Teaches you all the ins and outs of making all kinds of visual effects goodness. Maybe consider checking that out. Okay? I hope that your violence is cartoony from now on.